We cannot grow strong without deep roots. Last spring, I walked down the lane with my family at my in-laws' farm on our way to the pond. Rows of freshly planted corn rose on one side and rows of wheat on the other. We chatted about the weather, and my father-in-law commented that it was good that we had not had too much rain this spring. This seemed odd to me. I always heard farmers talking about needing more rain. I asked, making my best guess, if he was worried about the corn drowning with too much water. Instead, he said, "You need rain in the spring, but if you get too much, the roots won't go very deep. A little dry heat will cause the corn to put its roots deep and make it much stronger later in the year. A little dryness caused the roots to run deeper. As much is true in life with God as with life in the field. When the heat of summer comes, the plants without roots struggle to survive, let alone thrive. When the strong winds blow, the plants without deep roots are blown over and sometimes never come up again. What about in your life? How do we have deep enough roots not only to withstand the storms and challenges of life, but maybe even thrive in the midst of them? In Rooted, Growing in Christ in a Rootless Age, you will hear how rootlessness is not just the story of our lives or of the modern world, but is a key part of the biblical story. God roots his people in particular places: Eden, the Promised Land. God dwells with and guides his people as they wander as pilgrims, as people who long for a home but have not reached it. God even uproots his people from Egypt, from the land and into exile. Through it all, God worked to root his people in him above all else. However homeless they sometimes felt, they were learning to find their home in God. Along the way, God gave gifts to his people to help them grow more rooted in him. Gifts like the Lord's Supper, baptism, and praying the Psalms. In Rooted, you will not only be brought into the biblical story of God rooting and uprooting his people, but you will be invited to join in these practices that God gave his people, so that you too can grow more rooted in Jesus. If you are restless and never quite feeling settled, Rooted was written for you. If you've tried slowing down, simplifying your life, but still have an ache in your soul, Rooted was written for you. For everyone who has felt the pressure to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time, Rooted was written for you. Rootlessness is part of the biblical story, and it's part of our story as well. But growing more rooted in God is part of the biblical story too. My prayer is that it would be part of your story as well.